The research vessel Pathfinder dropped out of faster-than-light travel above a world that glowed pale orange in the light of its distant sun. Peter Coleman pressed his face against the observation window, his breath fogging the glass as he stared at the planet below. For 3 years he had dreamed of this moment. For 3 years he had studied every fragment of information about Cathara and its mysterious temples. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Linda Hayes stood beside him, her commander's uniform crisp despite the long journey. "Hard to believe an entire civilization is dying down there." Peter nodded slowly. The Catharans had made first contact with humanity only 5 years ago, and the news had shocked everyone. Their species was ancient, their cities magnificent, but their population was declining. "Some genetic defect," the scientists said. "In another 200 years, the Catharans would be extinct."
"The temples are our landing priority," Linda continued. "The Catharans specifically requested human scholars to examine them."
"Apparently their own priests can't make sense of half the inscriptions anymore. That's what interests me most," Peter said. He pulled out his data tablet, showing her images of the temple writings. "Look at these symbols. They don't match any known Catharan language, modern or historical. It's like they were written by someone else entirely." The shuttle ride down to the surface took 2 hours. Peter spent the entire time reviewing his notes, comparing the temple script to every dead language in human history. Something about the structure nagged at him, a familiar pattern he couldn't quite place. Cathara's capital city rose from the orange desert like a crown of crystal spires. The buildings caught the sunlight and threw it back in rainbow cascades. But as the shuttle descended, Peter noticed the empty windows, the silent streets, a city built for millions, now housed barely 50,000 souls. The landing pad was empty, except for 3 figures waiting at its edge. As Peter and Linda stepped off the shuttle, he got his first real look at the Catharans. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with scales that shimmered in shades of deep blue and green. Their faces were angular, almost reptilian, but their eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakably aware and knowing. The central figure stepped forward, moving with the careful dignity of great age. He wore robes of white cloth decorated with golden symbols, and he carried a staff of carved bone that stood even taller than himself. "I am Vortak, High Priest of the Temple of First Words," he said in carefully pronounced English. "Welcome to Cathara, friends from Earth." Linda bowed respectfully. "Thank you for receiving us, High Priest." "I'm Commander Linda Hayes, and this is Dr. Peter Coleman, our chief linguist." Vortak's eyes fixed on Peter with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "A linguist. Good. We have much need of your skills, Dr. Coleman." The old words fade from memory. "Soon, we will have only sounds with no meaning." They traveled to the temple in a ground vehicle that glided silently over the desert sand. Vortak sat across from Peter, watching him with those ancient eyes. "You study dead languages, I am told," the priest said. "Yes," Peter replied. "Languages that no one speaks anymore. I try to understand them, to bring their meanings back to life. Then perhaps you will understand what we have lost." Vortak's voice carried a deep sadness. "Our people forget. Each generation knows less than the one before. The words our ancestors wrote in the temples are now just pretty shapes to us. We perform the rituals, we speak the sacred phrases, but we no longer know what they mean. The Temple of First Words rose from the desert floor like a mountain of carved stone. Its walls were covered in inscriptions, thousands upon thousands of symbols flowing in neat rows." Peter felt his heart race as they approached. This was the largest collection of the unknown script ever found. Inside, the temple was cool and dim. Shafts of sunlight pierced through high windows, illuminating dancing dust motes. Vortak led them through corridors lined with more inscriptions, each one a mystery waiting to be solved. Tonight we perform the ceremony of stars, Vortak explained. It is our oldest ritual, performed every 50 days since the temple was built 3,000 years ago. You are invited to observe. As the sun set, more Catharans arrived at the temple. Peter counted, perhaps 200, many of them elderly. A young female named Cassandra introduced herself as a temple scholar. Her scales were brighter than the others, marking her youth. "I am glad you have come," she told Peter quietly. "Vorthak will not say it, but we are desperate. In my grandmother's time, there were priests who could read some of the old inscriptions. Now there is no one. Our history is becoming silence." The ceremony began as darkness filled the temple. The Catharans arranged themselves in a circle around a central altar. Vortak stood at its head, his staff planted firmly on the stone floor. He began to chant in a language that was clearly not modern Catharan. Peter listened carefully, his trained ear picking apart the sounds. The rhythm was formal, ritualistic. The phonemes were unusual, containing sounds that seemed designed for a different mouth shape than the Catharans possessed. And something else, something that made his skin prickle with recognition. Vortak's chant rose and fell like waves. The other Catharans swayed slightly, though Peter suspected they understood the words no better than he did. The priest's voice filled the temple, echoing off ancient stone. Then something clicked in Peter's mind. The grammatical structure, the way the words connected to each other. It was similar to Proto-Indo-European, the ancient root language that had spawned Sanskrit, Latin, Greek. But that was impossible. This was an alien world, an alien species. There was no way their language could share structures with human tongues. Yet the pattern was there. And if the pattern was there, then maybe he could understand it. Vortak reached the climax of his chant, his voice ringing with ceremonial power. He spoke a phrase that clearly served as a conclusion, a final blessing or invocation. Without thinking, operating purely on linguistic instinct and 3 years of studying these inscriptions, Peter responded. The words came from somewhere deep in his memory, from his studies of dead Earth languages combined with the patterns he had observed in the temple scripts. He spoke clearly, his voice carrying in the silent temple. The effect was instantaneous. Vorthak's staff fell from his hands, clattering loudly on the stone floor. The old priest's eyes went wide with shock. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, Vortak spoke a single word: impossible. The temple erupted. Catharans rose from their positions, speaking rapidly in their own language. Some looked frightened, others excited. Cassandra stared at Peter with an expression of wonder. Linda grabbed Peter's arm. "What did you just do?" "I'm not sure," Peter admitted, his own heart pounding. "I responded to his blessing. I think I used the old language, the one from the inscriptions." Vortak recovered his staff, but his hands trembled as he gripped it. He walked toward Peter slowly, like someone approaching a dangerous animal or a miraculous vision. "You spoke the first tongue," the priest said, his voice shaking. "A language of the gods, lost to us for 2,000 years. No living being should be able to speak those words with meaning. It is forbidden by the laws of the universe itself. Yet you, a human, an alien from a world we only just discovered, you spoke them as if they were your own." He shook his head slowly, scales rippling with emotion. "How is this possible?" Peter looked at the inscriptions covering the temple walls, at the alien faces staring at him in shock and hope, and realized that he had just opened a door that had been closed for millennia. Whatever lay beyond it would change everything they thought they knew about themselves, about humanity, and about the universe itself. The Council of Elders met in a chamber deep within the temple complex. Peter sat on a low bench designed for Catharan proportions, feeling small and out of place. Linda stood beside him, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. Around them, 12 elderly Catharans sat in a semicircle, their scales dulled with age but their eyes sharp with intelligence and suspicion. Vorthak stood at the center, his staff once again firm in his grip. He had recovered his composure since the ceremony, but Peter could still see uncertainty in the way the priest held himself. "Speak, human," one of the elders commanded. Her scales were nearly white with age, and her voice cracked like breaking ice. "Explain how you profane our most sacred language." Peter took a deep breath. "I meant no disrespect, honored elders. I am a linguist. I study the patterns of language, how words connect to meaning. When I heard the high priest's chant, I recognized something in its structure." "Recognized?" Another elder leaned forward. "You claim to know the first tongue?" "No," Peter said carefully. "But I know languages similar to it. On Earth, we have ancient languages that no one speaks anymore. Languages like Sumerian, Sanskrit, ancient Egyptian. I've spent my life studying them, learning their patterns." He pulled out his tablet and displayed several texts side by side. "Look at these sentence structures. This is Sanskrit from Earth, written 4,000 years ago. And this is the inscription from your temple entrance. The word order is nearly identical." The elders passed the tablet among themselves, clicking their tongues in their own language. Cassandra, who had been allowed to attend as a junior scholar, moved closer to see. "This cannot be coincidence," she said softly. Vortak raised his staff for silence. "The first tongue is the language of the Wanderers, the gods who created our world and our people. According to our oldest teachings, they spoke this language before time had meaning.
Add to you.
When they departed, they left us these temples and these words. We have guarded them for 3,000 years, even as their meanings faded from memory." "What if they weren't gods?" Peter asked quietly. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Several elders hissed, showing sharp teeth. Linda's hand tightened on Peter's shoulder in warning, but Vorthak held up a hand. "Continue, Dr. Coleman. You have already broken one impossible barrier today. Perhaps it is time to consider other impossibilities." Peter stood, moving to the wall where inscriptions covered every surface. What if the Wanderers were like us? Advanced beings, yes, but not divine. Travelers from another world who came here long ago. He traced his fingers over the carved symbols. These aren't prayers or religious texts. They're records, histories, instructions. I can't read all of it yet, but I can see the structure. This is how people write when they want to preserve important information. Danny Wright, the human cultural liaison, had been standing quietly in the corner. Now he stepped forward. "Dr. Coleman, are you suggesting that humans and Catharans share some common origin?" "I'm suggesting it's possible," Peter replied. "If the Wanderers visited both Earth and Cathara thousands of years ago, if they left their language on both worlds, then perhaps they left other things as well. Knowledge, technology, maybe even genetic material." Cassandra's eyes widened. The old stories speak of the Wanderers shaping the first Catharans from the dust of the world. We always thought it was metaphor. What if it wasn't? Peter turned to face the council. What if the Wanderers actually did create your species, or at least guided its evolution? And what if they did the same on Earth? The white-scaled elder spoke again, her voice softer now. "You are saying our gods were merely travelers. That we are not children of divinity, but children of science. I'm saying you might be children of people who cared enough to give you life and leave you knowledge," Peter said. "Isn't that worth something?" Vortak was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "The human speaks wisdom, even if it wounds the heart. I propose we allow Dr. Coleman and Scholar Cassandra to work together. Let them translate the inscriptions. Let us learn the truth, whatever it may be. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. As the council dispersed, Vortak approached Peter. You have shaken the foundations of everything we believe, Dr. Coleman. I hope for both our sakes that you are right about the Wanderers caring for us. Because if you are wrong, if we are merely abandoned experiments, then my people have even less purpose than we feared. The next 3 days passed in intense work. Peter and Cassandra set up a workspace in a small temple chamber, surrounded by rubbings and photographs of inscriptions. Danny brought them food and ensured they took breaks. Linda checked in regularly, concerned about the political tensions their work was creating. Cassandra proved to be a brilliant scholar. She knew every inscription in the temple by sight and could recognize patterns Peter missed. Together they began to build a translation key, matching symbols to sounds, sounds to meanings. Here, Cassandra pointed to a recurring phrase. This appears in every 10th inscription, like a marker or separator. Peter studied it. In ancient Sumerian, they used similar markers to indicate new sections of text. This one means something like, and furthermore, or it is also known that. They worked through the night, their excitement growing with each breakthrough. The inscriptions were not random. They told a story, a history. On the 4th day, they called for Vortak. The old priest arrived with Linda and Danny, his face drawn with worry or hope. Peter couldn't tell which. We've translated the main entrance inscription, Peter announced. The one above the doorway that everyone passes through. What does it say? Vortak asked. Peter read from his notes. To the children of Cathara, from those who came before, we are the Wanderers, seekers of knowledge and makers of life. We found your world empty and filled it with purpose. We shaped your ancestors and gave them the gift of thought. We leave you this temple so that one day, when you are ready, you will know your beginning and understand your destiny. Cassandra continued, You are not our slaves or our subjects. You are our children, made to be free and wise. We go now to tend other gardens across the stars, but we will not forget you. Should you one day learn to read these words, know that you have fulfilled our greatest hope. You have become worthy of the truth. Vortak's staff fell from his hands for the 2nd time in 4 days. The old priest sank to his knees, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Our gods abandoned us, he whispered. They made us and left us alone.
No, Peter knelt beside him. They didn't abandon you.
They trusted you.
They made you and then gave you freedom to become whatever you chose to be. That's not abandonment. That's love. But where did they go? Cassandra asked. Why did they leave? That, Peter said, looking at the remaining untranslated inscriptions covering the walls, is what we need to find out next. Because I don't think they left by choice. I think something made them run. Linda's communicator beeped. She answered it, listened for a moment, then looked at Peter with alarm. Nathan Cross just arrived from the Pathfinder. He's our geneticist. He says he needs to see you immediately. He's found something in the biological samples we collected. They met Nathan in a conference room hastily set up in one of the temple's outer buildings. The geneticist looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hands shook as he set up his display screen. I've been analyzing Catharan DNA and comparing it to our own, Nathan began without preamble. I was looking for basic compatibility markers, making sure we wouldn't accidentally spread diseases to each other. And, Linda prompted, Nathan brought up 2 spiraling structures side by side. This is human DNA. This is Catharan DNA. They're not the same, but they share something remarkable. There are genetic markers here, sequences that don't occur naturally through evolution. They're too precise, too intentional. What are you saying? Vortak asked, having followed them from the translation chamber. I'm saying that both humans and Catharans have been genetically modified, Nathan said. Someone a very long time ago took native species on both our worlds and changed them, made them smarter, more adaptable. The markers are old, thousands of years old, but they're there in both of us. Peter felt the room spin slightly. The Wanderers didn't just visit our worlds, they actually created us, or at least made us what we are. Cassandra's voice was small, almost childlike. Then humans and Catharans are siblings? Children of the same makers? In a sense, Nathan confirmed. Very distant cousins, but yes, related through deliberate design rather than natural evolution. Vortak stood silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was not a bitter sound, but one of wonder and relief. All these years my people have mourned our extinction. We thought we were the last of our kind, alone in the universe. But we are not alone. We have siblings among the stars. The Wanderers gave us family we never knew existed. The translation work continued with renewed urgency. Peter and Cassandra now worked alongside Nathan, combining linguistic analysis with genetic data. Linda coordinated teams of human and Catharan researchers, while Danny worked to manage the growing unrest among the Catharan population. News of the discoveries had spread through the city. Some Catharans embraced the revelation that they were not alone in the universe. Others felt betrayed by the loss of their divine origins. Protests gathered outside the temple, though they remained peaceful. The Catharans were too few and too tired for violence. Vortak spent his days moving between the translation chamber and the city, trying to help his people understand what these changes meant. Peter watched the old priest struggle with his own crisis of faith and felt deep sympathy. He believed his whole life that the Wanderers were gods, Cassandra said one evening, as they worked by lamplight. Now he must accept they were only people, however advanced. It is like learning your parents are not perfect when you are very young. But he's adapting, Peter observed. He's stronger than he thinks. Cassandra smiled. He is our high priest. He must be strong for those who cannot be. They had translated perhaps a third of the temple's main chamber when they found the first warning. Peter almost missed it, focusing on a decorative panel he thought was purely artistic. But Cassandra noticed that the patterns contained words. Look here, she pointed with one clawed finger. These symbols are smaller, hidden in the design, as if someone wanted them to be found only by those who looked carefully. Peter brought his magnifying lens closer. She was right. Tiny script ran through what appeared to be a decorative border. He began transcribing it, his excitement growing with each word. When he finished, his hands were shaking. Cassandra! Get Vortak! Get everyone! Now, 20 minutes later, the chamber was filled with people. Linda, Danny, Nathan, Vortak, and a dozen other scholars, both human and Catharan, crowded around the panel. Read it, Linda commanded. Peter cleared his throat. To those who read these words, know that we write them in haste and fear. The great silence has found us. It comes from the deep darkness between stars, consuming everything in its path. We do not understand what it is. We know only that it erases civilizations as if they never existed. The chamber fell silent, except for the sound of breathing. Peter continued. We, the Wanderers, have fled across the galaxy for 3 generations. We have seen 100 worlds fall silent. We have seen species older and wiser than ourselves vanish without trace. We do not know if we can escape it. We do not know if anything can escape it. What is this silence? Vortak demanded. A weapon? A plague? Let him finish, Cassandra said quietly. We have scattered our children across the stars in the hope that some will survive. We have hidden them on distant worlds, far from known space lanes. We have given them the tools to grow and learn, but not the technology that might attract the silence's attention. We have made them primitive by choice, hoping that silence of a different kind will protect them. Peter paused, his throat dry. Nathan handed him water, which he drank gratefully before continuing. If you read these words, then you have survived long enough to become advanced. You have learned to read the old language. This means either the silence has passed, or it moves slowly enough that you still have time. We leave coordinates to the other seed worlds, to your brothers and sisters among the stars. Find them.
Unite them. Together you may have a chance. We did not.
Where are the coordinates? Linda asked urgently. I don't know, Peter admitted. This panel only gives the warning. The coordinates must be somewhere else in the temple. Vortok was already moving toward the door. I know every chamber, every wall. We will search until we find them. But it was Beth Morgan, a human systems analyst who had arrived on a support shuttle 2 days earlier, who made the next critical discovery. She had been studying astronomical data from the Pathfinder's sensors, comparing it to Catharan's star charts. She burst into the translation chamber just after midnight, her tablet glowing in the darkness. We have a problem. A big problem. Linda looked up from the star map she had been examining. What is it? I've been tracking anomalies in neighboring star sectors, Beth said, spreading her data across the main display. There are 17 star systems within 50 light-years of Cathara that appear on charts from 50 years ago but show no current activity. No radio signals, no light emissions, no signs of civilization. Maybe they're just uninhabited systems, Danny suggested. They weren't uninhabited 50 years ago, Beth countered. The Catharans traded with 3 of them. They had colonies, space stations, regular traffic. Now there's nothing, not even debris. It's like entire civilizations just vanished.
Nathan leaned forward. When did this start? That's the thing, Beth's voice shook slightly.
It's been gradual. One system went dark 40 years ago.
Then another 30 years ago. Then 3 more. 20 years ago. The rate is increasing. The last one disappeared just 8 months ago. Peter felt ice in his stomach. The silence. It's still active. And it's moving this way, Beth confirmed. Based on the pattern of disappearances, I calculate it will reach Cathara in approximately 20 to 30 years. The room erupted in shocked voices. Vortok stood frozen, his scales paling to a sickly gray. Cassandra reached out and gripped Peter's arm hard enough to hurt. Linda's command voice cut through the chaos. Everyone calm down.
We have time. 20 years is enough to evacuate, to warn others, to prepare.
Evacuate to where? Vorthak asked bitterly. My people are dying already. We barely have the strength to maintain our cities. How can we flee across the stars? That's why we need to find those coordinates, Peter said. The Wanderers said to find the other seed worlds, to unite them. Maybe together we can find a solution. For the next week, every available person searched the temple. They photographed every inscription, scanned every carving, examined every decorative element. The work was exhausting and often frustrating. Many inscriptions were too weathered to read. Others were in sections of the temple that had partially collapsed. It was Cassandra who finally found them, hidden in the floor of the deepest chamber. The tiles formed a star map when viewed from above, with symbols marking specific locations. 12 coordinates, she announced, her voice echoing in the chamber. 12 other seed worlds. Nathan immediately began comparing the coordinates to known star charts. These are scattered across this entire region of the galaxy. The nearest is 20 light-years away. The farthest is over 200. Any of them within the zone where systems have gone silent? Linda asked. Beth checked her data. 3 of them. And based on the progression pattern, 2 more will be in the danger zone within 10 years. Peter studied the map, his mind racing. The Wanderers were systematic. They spread their children far apart, hoping to maximize the chance that some would survive. But they also left breadcrumbs. These temples, the language, the genetic markers, they wanted us to find each other. Why? Vorthak asked. What could we possibly do against something that destroyed the Wanderers themselves? I don't know, Peter admitted. But maybe that's in the inscriptions, too. We've only translated a fraction of what's here.
They worked through the night and into the next day.
As dawn broke over the orange desert, Peter found another hidden text. This one carved into the ceiling of the main chamber. It required scaffolding to reach, which explained why it had never been fully examined before. He read it aloud to the assembled group. To our children, if you have found this message, then you have also found the warning. Do not despair. The silence is not invincible. We learned this too late to save ourselves, but perhaps not too late to save you. The key lies in unity. The silence feeds on isolation, on civilizations that stand alone.
It cannot consume what is truly connected. What does that mean? Danny asked. I'm not sure, Peter said. But there's more.
It says, the answer is in your blood, in the gift we gave you. You are not merely smart or strong. You are empathetic. You can understand each other across the vast differences of form and thought. This is your weapon. This is what the silence cannot comprehend or defeat. Vorthak looked at Peter, then at the other humans in the chamber. Empathy, the ability to understand what others feel, to care about those who are different from ourselves. The Wanderers didn't just make us intelligent, Nathan said slowly. They engineered us to be social, to form bonds across species lines. That's why humans and Catharans can work together so easily, even though we just met. It's built into our genetics. Cassandра's eyes shone with understanding. They made us to be friends, to be family, not just with our own kind, but with all their children. Then that's what we need to do, Linda said firmly. We need to find the other seed worlds. We need to bring the Wanderers' children together before the silence reaches us. Because if empathy and connection are our weapons, then we need to forge the strongest alliance the galaxy has ever seen. Peter looked at Vorthak. The old priest no longer seemed broken by the loss of his gods. Instead, there was something new in his eyes. Purpose. Hope. The Wanderers were not gods, Vorthak said quietly. But perhaps they were something better. They were parents who loved their children enough to give them a fighting chance. The decision to send messages to the 12 seed worlds was not made lightly. The Catharan Council debated for 3 days. Some elders argued that they should flee immediately, abandoning their dying world to seek refuge elsewhere. Others insisted that reaching out might attract the silence's attention. But Vorthak stood firm. The Wanderers left us instructions. They told us to unite. If we run in different directions, we die separately and alone. If we come together, perhaps we find strength we did not know we had. The vote passed by a single voice. Linda coordinated the communications effort from the Pathfinder. They crafted a message carefully, translating it into the first tongue that all seed worlds might recognize. Peter wrote the words with Cassandra's help, choosing each one with precision. People of the seed worlds, children of the Wanderers, we call to you from Cathara. We have read the ancient texts. We know the truth of our creation.
We know the warning of the silence.
We are not alone. We have brothers and sisters among the stars. It is time we meet. The messages went out simultaneously to all 12 coordinates, carried by quantum communication arrays that pushed the Pathfinder systems to their limits. Then came the hardest part, waiting. Some of these worlds are 200 light-years away, Beth explained to the anxious crowd gathered in the temple. Even with quantum communication, there will be delays in responses. We need to be patient. But patience was difficult when the silence was coming. Peter spent the waiting time continuing his translation work. The temple held secrets within secrets, layers of information hidden in increasingly clever ways. Some inscriptions could only be read at certain times of day when the light hit them at specific angles. Others revealed themselves only when cross-referenced with inscriptions in different chambers. Nathan worked alongside him, comparing genetic data from Catharans with human samples. "The modifications are beautiful," he said one afternoon, studying his displays. "The Wanderers didn't just make us smarter. They gave us enhanced mirror neurons, expanded emotional processing centers, increased oxytocin response to social bonding. They literally built friendship into our biology." "Can you tell if all the seed worlds receive the same modifications?" Peter asked. "The core patterns are consistent," Nathan replied. "But there are variations. It's like the Wanderers used a basic template but adapted it for different environments and species. We're all cousins, but we're not identical." 5 days after the messages were sent, the first response arrived. Beth was the one who detected it, late at night in her monitoring station aboard the Pathfinder. She ran to wake Linda, who immediately called everyone to an emergency meeting. The message was short, written in the first tongue. "We hear you, siblings of Kethara. We are the people of Theralon. We have read the temple texts. We have feared the silence. We thought we were alone. We are coming." The translation chamber erupted in celebration. Ketharans and humans embraced, their differences forgotten in the joy of the moment. Cassandra had tears streaming down her scaled face. Even Vortak allowed himself a smile. Over the next 2 weeks, 7 more responses arrived. Each one brought new hope, new names to learn. The people of Meridian, the collective of Sora, the clans of Vikesh, the Federation of Talvra. But 4 coordinates remained silent. 3 of those are in the danger zone, Beth reminded them grimly. "They might already be gone, or they might not have the technology to respond yet," Danny suggested. "The Wanderers seeded them at different development levels. Some might still be pre-industrial." Peter was studying a newly translated section of temple text when he found something that made his blood run cold. He read it 3 times to be certain, then called for Vortak and Linda. "What is it?" Linda asked, seeing his expression. "I found a detailed description of the silence," Peter said quietly. "It's not a weapon or a plague. It's something else entirely." He showed them the inscription. The Wanderers called it the consuming dark. According to this, it's a phenomenon that exists in the space between dimensions. It feeds on consciousness, on thought itself. When a civilization becomes advanced enough, when it generates enough collective mental activity, it attracts the silence's attention. "Like a light attracting moths," Vortak said slowly. "Exactly. And once it focuses on a world, it consumes everything. Not just the people, but all trace of their existence. It erases them from reality itself." Nathan joined them, having overheard. "That explains why the disappeared systems show no debris, no ruins, nothing. The silence doesn't destroy them. It unmakes them." "How do you fight something like that?" Linda demanded. Peter continued reading. "The Wanderers discovered something important. The silence can only consume isolated consciousness. When minds are truly connected, truly unified, it can't feed. It's like trying to swallow something that's bigger than your mouth. So empathy really is our weapon, Cassandra said. She had entered quietly and now stood, listening intently. Not just friendship or cooperation, but actual mental connection. The text suggests that the seed worlds were designed to be compatible on a neural level, Nathan added, examining his genetic data with new understanding. If we came together, if we formed deep enough bonds, our combined consciousness might be too large, too interconnected for the silence to consume. But we would need all the seed worlds, Vorthak observed. Or at least most of them. A handful of species would not be enough. That night, another message arrived. This one was different. It came from one of the silent coordinates, but the text was garbled, fragmented. Beth worked for hours to clean up the signal. When she finally succeeded, the message was terrifying in its brevity. This is Kelos. The darkness comes. We see our stars dying. We hear the silence growing. If anyone receives this, remember us.
Tell the galaxy we existed. Tell them we tried to warn them.
Tell them... The message ended there. Peter sat in the darkened communication room, staring at the incomplete text. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization had just been erased. People who were cousins to him and to the Ketherans, gone as if they had never been. We're too late for them, Linda said softly.
But we can still save the others.
The losses spurred them to greater urgency. More responses came in. The unity of Rashek, the harmony of Lorien. Each new voice added to the growing chorus of the Wanderer's children. Peter and Cassandra finally completed the translation of the main chamber. The final inscription was the largest, covering the entire back wall. It had taken weeks to decode because it used a more complex version of the first tongue, filled with technical terms and advanced concepts. When they finished, they gathered everyone to hear it. Peter's voice was hoarse from hours of reading, but he pushed on. The Wanderer's final message, they wrote, "We have failed to stop the silence, but we have learned its nature.
It is not evil. It does not choose to consume.
It is simply what it is, like fire or gravity. It exists in the spaces between thoughts, and it grows stronger as consciousness evolves." He paused to drink water, then continued. "We believe we have found the answer, though we will not live to test it. Consciousness creates reality. Isolated consciousness creates isolated reality, and the silence feeds on the gaps between. But unified consciousness, truly unified, creates a seamless reality with no gaps to exploit."
What does that mean, practically? Danny asked.
Cassandra answered. "It means we need to learn to think together. Not just cooperate, but actually merge our consciousness on some level. The genetic modifications the Wanderers gave us make this possible.
We have the biological foundation for deep neural linking. Like a hive mind?"
Nathan sounded disturbed.
"No," Peter said. "The text is clear on this."
Not a hive mind where individuals lose themselves. Rather, a symphony where each voice remains distinct but harmonizes with the whole. The Wanderers called it the Chorus of Many. Vortak stood and walked to the inscription, placing his hand on the ancient stone. "They gave us the gift of empathy because they knew that true empathy taken to its fullest expression becomes something greater. It becomes unity without loss of self."
"Can we actually do this?" Linda asked. "Can we really connect our minds with alien species we've never met?" "The Wanderers thought we could," Peter replied.
"But there's a warning here, too. The process requires trust at a level most species never achieve.
It requires vulnerability, opening your innermost self to beings who are fundamentally different from you. It requires faith. How much time do we have?"
Vortak asked. Beth had been monitoring the astronomical data throughout the meeting. Now she looked up, her face pale. Another system just went silent. One that was active yesterday. The silence is accelerating. Based on current progression, it will reach Kefara in 15 years, maybe less. Then we have 15 years to achieve what the Wanderers could not, Vorthak said. 15 years to bring the seed worlds together and forge the chorus of many. 9 seed worlds have responded so far, Linda noted. That leaves 3 unaccounted for, plus the one we just lost. We keep calling, Peter said firmly, and we start planning how to bring everyone together. The Wanderers left us the tools. Now we have to learn how to use them. The first ship from Theralon arrived 3 months later. Peter stood with Vortak, Linda, and Cassandra on the landing platform, watching the vessel descend through Kethara's orange sky. His heart pounded with anticipation and nervousness. The ship was elegant, built with curves and flowing lines that suggested a very different aesthetic from human or Ketharan design. When the airlock opened, 3 figures emerged. The Theralons were shorter than humans, perhaps 5 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns. Their faces were broad and flat, with large eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. But when the lead Theralon smiled, Peter saw something unmistakably familiar in the expression. Joy. Hope. Recognition. I am Senna, the Theralon said in accented but clear English. We learned your language from the broadcasts we detected. We have waited so long to know we were not alone. Vortak stepped forward and bowed deeply. Welcome, sister. Welcome to Kethara, the home of your cousins. That evening, they gathered in the temple. Senna and her companions stared at the inscriptions with wonder, running their hands over symbols they had seen in their own temples but never fully understood. We have 6 temples on Theralan, Senna explained. We have studied them for generations, but we lost the ability to read the first tongue 2,000 years ago. We only knew they were important, sacred. We never imagined they were messages from our creators. Did your people also face a crisis of faith? Cassandra asked gently. Senna's bioluminescent patterns flickered in what Peter was learning to recognize as sadness. Some did. Many still do. Learning that our gods were travelers, not divine beings, has shaken the foundations of our society. But others, like me, see it as liberation. We are not abandoned children crying for absent parents. We are inheritors of a gift, carrying forward a legacy. Over the next 6 months, representatives from 8 of the responding worlds arrived at Kethara. The temple complex became a meeting ground for species that had never known each other existed. The people of Meridian were tall and slender, with translucent skin that showed the movement of fluids beneath. The Soren Collective arrived as a group mind of hundreds of small individuals that functioned as one intelligence. The Vakesh clans were massive beings, covered in rocky plates, slow-moving but deeply thoughtful. The Talvrons resembled plants more than animals, communicating through chemical signals and color changes. Each species was radically different in form, yet Peter noticed something remarkable. Within days of meeting, they began to understand each other, not just through language, but through something deeper. The empathy modifications the Wanderers had built into their genetics were activating, creating bonds that transcended words. Nathan spent his time studying this phenomenon. It's extraordinary, he told Peter one evening. When 2 of the seed species interact, their neural patterns begin to synchronize. Not completely, but enough to create genuine emotional resonance. They literally feel what the other feels.
Is that enough to create the chorus of many?
Peter asked. I don't know, Nathan admitted.
We need to test it. We need to try actually linking our consciousness.
The proposal frightened many people. The Ketharan elders debated it for weeks.
Some of the other species representatives refused outright, calling it unnatural or dangerous. But Vortak surprised everyone.
I will be the first, he announced. I am old.
My species is dying. If there is risk, let me bear it. But if there is hope, let me help find it. Peter immediately volunteered to join him. We started this together, Vortak. We'll see it through together. Cassandra stepped forward. And I will be the third.
Our people need to see that we trust this path. Senna added her voice. The Theralans will join.
We did not come all this way to turn back now. In the end, 12 individuals from 8 different species agreed to attempt the first linking. Nathan and the other scientists prepared a chamber deep in the temple, installing medical monitoring equipment alongside the ancient inscriptions. The process itself was deceptively simple. The participants sat in a circle, holding hands or the equivalent appendages of their species. They closed their eyes and focused on opening their minds, on lowering the barriers that kept their thoughts private. At first, Peter felt nothing except the warm pressure of Vortak's scaled hand on one side and Cassandra's on the other. He tried to relax, to let go of his defenses. Then, slowly, he began to sense something. Not thoughts exactly, but feelings, emotions that were not his own. Vortak's quiet determination mixed with deep sadness for his dying people. Cassandra's fierce hope battling against her fear. Senna's joy at finding family among the stars. The sensations grew stronger. Peter felt his awareness expanding, touching minds that were utterly alien, yet somehow familiar. The Soren Collective's strange experience of being many and one simultaneously. The Vikesh warrior's patient strength. The Tal'Varine botanist's slow, deep contentment. He could still feel his own identity, his own thoughts, but they were now part of something larger, like individual instruments in an orchestra, each playing their own melody, but creating a harmony together. The linking lasted only 10 minutes before Nathan ended it, concerned about the strain on the participants. But those 10 minutes changed everything. Peter opened his eyes to find tears streaming down his face. Around the circle, others were crying, laughing, or sitting in stunned silence. Vortak was shaking, his scales rippling with emotion.
I felt you, the old priest whispered. All of you.
I understood what it means to be Theralan, to be human, to be Soren. For a moment, I was more than Catharin. I was all of us.
It works, Cassandra said, her voice filled with wonder. The chorus of many is real.
We could do this.
News of the successful linking spread quickly.
More volunteers came forward. The scientists refined the process, learned to sustain it longer, to include more participants. Within weeks, they had linked groups of 50 individuals. Within months, hundreds. But time was running short. Beth's astronomical monitoring showed 2 more systems going silent. The silence was less than 12 years away from Cathara now, and its pace was accelerating. Then came a breakthrough. A message arrived from one of the 3 coordinates that had never responded. It was in the first tongue, but the dialect was archaic, harder to translate. Peter worked for days to decode it. When he finally succeeded, he called an emergency meeting of all the species representatives.
The message is from a world called Varesh, he announced. They say they've been watching us.
They never responded because they were afraid. Their civilization is far older than ours.
They've been advanced for over 5,000 years. Why would that make them afraid to contact us? Linda asked.
Because they've seen the silence before, Peter said grimly. 3,000 years ago it came to their region of space.
They survived by doing exactly what the Wanderers suggested. They formed a chorus with the other advanced species in their sector. Together they created a unified consciousness strong enough that the silence couldn't consume them. Excitement rippled through the chamber. Then they know how to fight it, Senna said.
Yes, Peter confirmed. But there's a complication. The chorus only works if every participant commits completely. The Varesh had to link with species they didn't like, didn't trust, even species they had been at war with. They say it was the hardest thing their civilization ever did. Many refused and were lost to the silence. Vortak stood. Are they willing to help us? Peter smiled. They're already on their way. They say they've been preparing for this moment since they first detected our radio signals decades ago. They knew eventually we would wake up, read the temples, and understand our purpose. They'd been waiting to welcome their younger siblings. The Varesh arrived 2 months later with a fleet of 12 ships. They were an aquatic species, requiring special environmental suits to walk on land. Their leader, an ancient being named Koreth, had lived for over 800 years. You are young, Koreth told the assembled representatives, his voice bubbling through his translator.
Young and afraid. This is natural.
But you have something we lost in our age. You have the pure empathy the Wanderers gave you, uncorrupted by centuries of cynicism.
This is your strength.
How do we create a chorus large enough to stop the silence? Cassandra asked. You don't stop it, Koreth explained. You cannot destroy the silence any more than you can destroy gravity.
Instead, you make yourselves indigestible. You create a unified consciousness that spans worlds, that connects billions of minds in harmony.
The silence cannot consume what has no gaps, no isolation. Billions? Danny sounded overwhelmed. How do we convince billions of people from different worlds to open their minds to each other? One person at a time, Koreth replied. One connection at a time. We will teach you. We will show you how we did it.
But the work must be yours. The choice must be yours.
The next 10 years were the hardest of Peter's life. He traveled between worlds, teaching the linking techniques, helping species overcome their fear of each other. Vortak worked tirelessly despite his advancing age, becoming a symbol of hope for the entire alliance. Cassandra coordinated efforts across 12 worlds, her natural organizational skills proving invaluable. Slowly, the chorus grew. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became millions. Each new connection made the next easier. The empathy effect spread like ripples in a pond. But not everyone joined willingly. Some species, some individuals, refused. They feared losing their identity, their independence. Peter understood their concerns, but couldn't ease their fears. The choice had to be free, or it meant nothing. In the 11th year, with the silence now just months away, they achieved critical mass. Over 4 billion individuals from 15 different species had joined the chorus. The combined consciousness stretched across light years, a vast web of empathy and understanding. Peter stood with Vortak in the temple where it had all begun. The old priest was failing now, his body worn down by time and effort, but his eyes were bright with purpose.
We did it, my friend, Vortak said softly.
We united the Wanderers, children. You did it, Peter replied. You had the courage to believe when your faith was shattered. You showed everyone else it was possible. The silence arrived 3 weeks later. Beth's instruments detected it first, a wave of unreality spreading toward Cathara and the other seed worlds. Stars disappeared. Space itself seemed to fold inward. Every member of the chorus felt it. A pressure at the edges of consciousness, something vast and hungry trying to find a way in. For hours, the pressure built, testing their unity, looking for gaps. But there were no gaps. The chorus held. Billions of minds thinking together, feeling together, being together. Too large to swallow. Too unified to divide. The pressure faded. The silence moved on, seeking easier prey. Peter stood in the temple with tears streaming down his face. Around him, representatives from 15 worlds embraced, laughed, and cried together. They had survived. More than that, they had become something new, something the Wanderers had hoped for but never lived to see. Vorthak placed a hand on Peter's shoulder. The Wanderers were not gods, the old priest said, repeating the words that had once pained him. But they were parents who loved us enough to give us everything we needed to survive, and now we honor them, not through worship, but through the family we have become. Peter looked around at the gathered species, so different yet so connected. "We're not just survivors," he said.
We're proof that the Wanderer's dream was real, that empathy is stronger than darkness.
That together we can face anything. And in the ancient temple on Cathara, surrounded by the words of those long-departed travelers, the chorus of many sang with voices from across the stars.